for being here on time. We are going to start on time. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Olivia Darby, who's actually one of the placement supervisors for those of you who are in Wonder Foundation. Olivia studied geography at UCL, where she focused on overseas development. She's previously undertaken a range of policy and project management work for a number of civil society organisations and for a member of the European Parliament. This has included working directly with disadvantaged children and families in Brixton, where she also set up the Inter-School programme for recently arrived unaccompanied minor and refugee girls. In Brussels, she followed issues relating to health and the environment, including women's health and reproductive health in developing countries, and agriculture. She worked on a range of policy and engagement issues with community groups and statutory partners in Haringey, including child protection and child poverty policy and awareness, access to healthcare and mental health. She's volunteered extensively, including setting up and leading projects for the benefit of women and young people in the UK and abroad, for example, in Brussels and Kenya. She was a trustee of the African Women's Welfare Group, which focuses on FGM awareness and prevention in the UK and Tanzania. I'm going to pass the mic on to Olivia.
I might need a round of applause when I've actually finally put this mic on. Okay. While walking along a beach, an elderly man saw someone in the distance, bending down, picking something up and throwing it into the sea. As he got closer, he saw that the figure was a young man, and he was picking up starfish and gently throwing them back into the water. The old man came closer and he said, "Hello, what are you doing?" And the young man paused and he said, "Well, I'm throwing starfish into the sea." The old man smiled and he said, "But why? Why are you throwing starfish into the water?" And the young man said, "Well, the sun is coming up, the tide is going out, and if I don't throw them in, they'll die." And the old man looked at him and he said, "But young man, there are thousands of miles of beach, there are thousands of starfish. What difference can you possibly make?" The young man listened politely. He bent down, he picked up another starfish, and he threw it into the water. And then he said, "Well, it made a difference to that one." When I was asked to give this presentation, I confess I felt rather out of my depth. I've given seminars in the past on topics relating to community engagement, to women's equality, to international development, but I have never been asked to tell my own story before, and it made me frankly rather nervous. What I want to share with you, rather than theories or a map of global citizenship, is a series of experiences that have helped me to understand what a global citizen is. These experiences have helped me to make the decisions that I have made relating to my career, and I hope that they will give you something to mull over during your placement over the next couple of weeks. To go back to the starfish story, for me, global citizenship is about making a positive difference, because even if it's only small, it can be extremely significant to somebody. When we think about global citizenship, the first thing that always comes to mind is people overseas. And I am a strong believer in helping people overseas. Because of this, I set up Wonder Foundation with friends in 2009, and we work with local projects helping women and their families through education and personal support in 16 countries. However, my approach to international development is very much coloured by my experience working with women and girls here in the UK. London is the perfect place to become a global citizen, and UCL is a great place to start. Studying here, we're so lucky to have classmates from all over the world, an opportunity to share experiences and to learn from each other. Working in the voluntary sector here in London is a chance also to meet people from all over the world and to understand what is important from them. So in this session, I'm going to talk to you about what I see as being the two keys to global citizenship. Firstly, respecting others, and secondly, learning about yourself. I say develop because in this crazily complex world that we live in, where everything from what we eat to what we wear to how we travel has implications on others, we can only think about developing our global citizenship. Our understanding of what it means is going to change as our circumstances change and those of the planet that we share. So first, respecting others. When I was preparing this talk, I was thinking, oh, shall I use the starfish story, or should I use this true story that I'm actually about to tell you? And I realized that they actually make up two sides of the same coin and summarize very neatly the things that I think are important in being a global citizen. When I was studying at UCL, a friend went to a talk given by a Mozambican student, and that student said, in my country in 2000, there was a flood and a cyclone. 500,000 people were displaced, and it killed almost 1,000 people. 500,000 is only 500,000, and 1,000 people is only a fraction of that, 0.5%. But those people were not statistics. Each one had a family, just like you and me, and they died one by one by one. The world we live in is vast. Few of us will even set foot in half of the countries that there are. There are 9 billion people living on this planet, and according to Dunbar's number, the average cognitive limit to the number of people with whom one can maintain stable social relationships is only 150. These are the relationships where an individual knows who each person is and how they each relate to each other. For the most social of butterflies, maybe you can keep 250 people in mind, but for some people that number will only be 100. Facebook lies. We cannot, despite our best intentions, simply be a citizen of the world. We must start somewhere. So how on earth do we decide who to help and where to start? Well, if we begin to unpack the statistics and realize that each fraction of a percent is a life just like you and me, we can start there. There are people needing our help and support everywhere that we look. By disposable income, 9 out of 10 of the poorest areas in Western Europe are actually in the UK. The richest is in London, which is another statistic disguising the truth, because 46% of children in London are living in poverty. And this is 20 percentage points higher than the rest of the country. The Brazilian rainforest may be a global cause célèbre, but if you listen to George Monbiot, some of the most tragic and easily rectified ecological tragedies are closer to home. For example, the Welsh Mountains or the Scottish Highlands, where there is almost no biodiversity after centuries of human destruction. Understanding the local is essential to addressing global problems. Meeting the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals for global development agreed in 2015 by UN member states, with national targets until 2030, ranging from eradication of poverty to gender equality and responsible consumption, is just as relevant here in the UK as it is in Congo, Cambodia, or Guatemala. The only way that we can understand what these statistics mean and put faces to the numbers is by listening. When we're in a debate, in the pub or in the lecture hall, theories sound great, and sometimes they are good, but only by listening and learning from the people who are the statistics that those theories seek to change, can we understand that the realities of what could help and what won't help. When we remember that each of us is also a statistic to somebody, how irrational and unpredictable we are, can we remember that theories are only tools. One of the greatest burdens of our age, I would say, is the paradox of choice. Had we been born 100 years ago, if your father was a butcher, you'd probably now be a butcher. If your mother was a lady of leisure, probably so would you be. This predestination was something that people rightly rebelled against, and as time has gone on, we have more and more options. UCL now offers an amazing 202 undergraduate degrees. There are thousands of jobs being created in exciting new fields, and there are millions of ways in which we could act as a global citizen. So where do we start in our quest to respect others? The second thing that I believe is essential to global citizenship, building on respect of others, is learning about yourself. Personal reflection is essential. Each one of us has to ask, who am I? What do I want to achieve in my life? What fulfills me? What drives me? What motivates me? And these sound quite similar, but they are in fact different. What do I have to give to society? Who am I going to give to? Citizenship is about rights as well as responsibilities. And in the words of Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. A UCL education in arguably the best city in the world is a great privilege, it's a great opportunity, and it's a great springboard. And the question that we all have to ask ourselves is whether we're going to use it to benefit ourselves or whether we're also going to use it to benefit others. So let me answer these questions myself. Who am I? Well, I am an idealist. I'm a Christian, injustice makes me cross, and I believe that every person is equally valuable. I'm an activist. I hate moaning. I think it's always better to start and reflect and refine rather than never to start just in case your solution isn't quite perfect. However, I am still a perfectionist, and sometimes I need a good shove in order to take the plunge. I'm a firm believer in Gandhi's "be the change that you want to see in the world." And equally, I am also clear that I fail to do this every single day. But that's okay, because I am human and I am not an angel. I am female, and like many of my peers, I've experienced gender inequality and inequity in many different ways, and that frustrates me. Finally, I believe that in the words of Cardinal Mahoney, any society, any nation, is judged on the basis of how it treats its weakest members, the last, the least, and the littlest. And that is the society that I, as a global citizen, want to work towards. So what do I want to achieve in my life? What fulfills me and what drives me? I'm lucky that over the years I've managed to reconcile, more or less, these three questions. If your ambition is fame, driving a Ferrari, or owning a place in Monaco, then what you want to achieve may not be the thing that fulfills you. You will know when you're fulfilled, because it is not about a passing euphoria, but about a feeling of being at peace with yourself and the decisions that you have made. What drives you? In a sense, this will greatly relate to the answer that you have given to who you are. What are your gifts and what are your talents? Again, these are questions that we have to keep asking ourselves as our personal circumstances change. Spending all hours of the day looking after disadvantaged children when your own children are at home missing you is maybe not the thing that is going to fulfill you or the most fulfilling decision that you could possibly make. And what do I have to give? Well, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. Many of us have craved or still crave the exoticism of volunteering or working in development overseas. I spent time in Kenya. The colour, the vibrancy, the newness, I loved it all. I made some amazing friends, and the experience changed the course of my life. But one of the greatest ways in which it changed me was to make me realise how useless I actually was. I went out thinking that I could make a difference, but I was the one who benefited. I didn't speak any of the local languages. I had no real expertise. I wasn't a qualified teacher with knowledge of the local education system. I wasn't an engineer who could come up with some great solution to a practical problem. I knew very little about local culture or how things work there. I learned a huge amount, and I'm very grateful for that experience, but I met many Kenyans who were much better qualified than I was and also had local knowledge. In 2013, some of you may be aware that there was an enormous typhoon, Haiyan, in the Philippines. When it happened, I had just come back, in fact, from the Philippines, where I'd been visiting some of Wonder's education partners there. Wonder focuses on education interventions that will have a long-term impact rather than humanitarian relief. But knowing that many of our project beneficiaries were also affected by the typhoon made us want to step in and do something. The affected area, the Visayas, is a huge number of islands. Typically there, people don't speak English, and probably not even Filipino, but local dialect. These challenges meant that aid was slow to reach even the larger islands and even the interior of the larger islands, when infrastructure had been destroyed. But equally, it was about local knowledge. Our partners, being local, had connections all over the islands. With the money that we sent, they were able to make a huge impact because the beneficiaries who hadn't been affected were able to volunteer to make things happen. And by chance, a friend who worked for a huge international charity to lead logistics landed in Cebu, and by that time our partners had already been giving out lots of emergency help. The international charity arrived. They had nowhere to stay, they didn't have any vehicles, they didn't have any local language knowledge. And it was thanks to our local connections that they were able to start their humanitarian work. And for me, these are both lessons in being honest with ourselves. A bleeding heart is not going to make any difference. And I know, because I have been accused of being a bleeding heart 100 times. Empowering local people to make a difference in their own communities, which is what Wonder does, I believe is the best and the most sustainable solution. So think about your skills and your experiences. In the voluntary sector, soft skills are very, very valuable, but hard skills are too. Have you noticed something in your local community that you could address? Are you a medic? Are you an engineer? Are you a designer or a filmmaker? Could you work with communities to develop a sustainable, appropriate technology solution to a problem? As a citizen, what do I have to give? I'm not the cleverest, I'm not the most qualified, and I'm not an expert. I do have a love of learning to a fault. I'm a fan of useless information, and my mum says that I never grew out of the why phase that toddlers tend to grow out of, and this frustrates her immensely. To this end, I love learning from people, understanding new perspectives and experiences. In my work, I think that this becomes a strength. I love seeing people change for the better. When I was running the youth service of a women's centre, Baytree, in Brixton, we took a group of girls away to Jersey for a week. One of the girls, let's call her Anna Maria, was from South America. She dressed for attention, she spoke crudely, and she was the type of 16-year-old that any teacher would hate to teach. Anna Maria had only recently arrived in the country. She just about learnt English. She could barely read or write it, and she had few real friends. One of the activities that we had planned for the girls was that they would go and put on a show in an old people's home. This was great because it meant that they had something to do in the evenings and that we could have half an hour's peace. When we visited the old people's home, we discovered that one of the residents was originally from Spain, and she was delighted to be able to speak Spanish to Anna Maria. Anna Maria's posture relaxed, and I saw her comfortable in her skin for the first time since I'd met her, because she'd found out that she did actually have something to give that other people thought was worthwhile. I loved seeing that, but again, it taught me a very important lesson. We are much more fulfilled when we give than when we receive. Thinking about being a global citizen as only us going out and supporting other people, rather than realizing that we are also beneficiaries and that beneficiaries are also citizens, is hugely important. Tim Beasley-Murray talks about the horizontal and vertical aspects of global citizenship. And I think I've spoken mostly about the vertical aspects, the looking around us and seeing the people who it's easy to miss. The Sustainable Development Goals are our global citizenship target until 2030. And just within your groups, within the groups that are going out to the different projects, I'd like you to spend 5 minutes thinking about the project that you are going to be working with and which of the 3 development goals, which are here, you think that your project best addresses. So 5 minutes, starting now. What you've all found out, but sadly we don't have the time. But I imagine that what you have discovered is that your project actually addresses several, and that you've struggled to narrow it down to 3. Am I right? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, this is important because actually it shows that however you decide to act positively as a citizen, through voluntary work or through working in the third sector, you'll be addressing multiple problems. Secondly, it shows how by starting in the UK, we are tackling global problems. The sunshine may be rare, it may not be terribly exotic, but the work that you do here has the potential to touch just as many hearts and lives as the work that you might do anywhere in the world. My final point is to aim not to be a hypocrite. Now, sadly, we are all a little bit hypocritical because our lives are busy and they're complex and we aren't perfect. Live your global citizenship. You'll be amazed by how many questions it opens up with your friends and how you are able to inspire them to be good citizens too. And you will be amazed by how being authentic means that you make friends with incredibly inspirational, honest and genuine people because you share a vision rather than just a postcode or a shared interest in a team or a band. A million Facebook shares or Twitter rants or slogan t-shirts is nothing on seeing somebody actually live their values and being a good citizen. So at the end of the week, I'd encourage you to go back to the questions. Who am I? What do I want to achieve? What motivates me? What drives me? What fulfills me? Use them as a tool for personal reflection and see how much you have learned in your projects from the citizens who, by learning to respect them, you no longer see as statistics.